All right, welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. I am so excited. I'm joined by Nancy Smith, an attorney licensed practice in Vermont and New York. She's the chair of the Collaborative Divorce section of the Vermont Bar Association, a leader in her collaborative divorce practice group, and a member of the International Academy of Collaborative Professionals. She frequently writes and talks about divorce, family law ethics, and collaborative divorce practices, and she is the author of Untangling Your Marriage, A Guide to Collaborative Divorce, which came out just a few months ago. Nancy Smith, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, Nancy. I always love to get to know the person behind the microphone. Nobody gets into this really, really specialized line of work without a story behind it. You are very passionate and a subject matter expert. Nancy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. Obviously, when I was a young girl growing up in the streets in Detroit, I didn't think I would become a divorce lawyer. I thought I'd be a lawyer, but I didn't think divorce would be my area. That came later in law school, and I worked in a legal clinic and worked on a domestic violence case. And I realized that custody issues are constitutional issues. I liked being in court. I wanted to be an advocate for people who felt that they didn't have a voice for themselves. And I really appreciated the bedrock of democracy in the judiciary and the role that it serves. So that's how I got into it, mostly also because I stayed in Vermont and there weren't any environmental jobs at the time because I got my degree in environmental law as well. So I ended up at a general practice firm and really just enjoyed doing the family law work. It's important work and not everybody's suited to it, and apparently I am.
Sounds like it. So again, I'm chatting with Nancy Smith, an expert on collaborative divorce, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in just a moment. But let's talk about divorce. Especially for entrepreneurs tuning in, business owners. I'm curious, does divorce impact performance at work? And tell us a little bit more about that and how and who are the players, the stakeholders in a company that might be involved?
Great. Yes, definitely. Divorce impacts everybody, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're a W-2 wage earner or whether you're the CEO. It is an emotional process. I like to think of divorce as 80% emotional, 10% legal, 10% financial. And until you get your head on straight and work and manage your deep emotions regarding all the losses that a divorce represents, it's hard to think straight. So therefore, it's hard to do your job. There's very limited empirical research on the cost to employers of a single divorce, but there has been some work done by a woman named Rosemary Frank out of Tennessee, and she did an analysis where basically she identified that the divorce of a single employee making about $60,000 a year cost about $86,000 in lost productivity. So it's not just the person going through the divorce who has to take time off perhaps to go to court. It impacts the coworkers who maybe have to pick up the slack because somebody's head is not in the game. It includes absenteeism, presenteeism, being present on the job, but not really having your mind and energy focused on the task at hand. So it definitely obviously it impacts morale because divorce can often be an isolating and slightly depressing experience if you are not given the correct support.
So indeed, so definitely divorce impacting not only the individual, but also coworkers and supervisors. And again, for business owners, but like you said, for W-2 employees, this is definitely something that divorce is definitely going to, if it affects one, it's going to affect all. And $85,000, wow, that's a fascinating statistic. So let's talk about that environment of an organization. Some companies have an HR section or an HR professional, or sometimes even outsource it to an HR PEO or something like that. So in what ways can HR or even coworkers, even your colleagues, help a divorcing colleague?
Right. I think that a lot of times HR likes to think that, we don't really deal with this. We have an EAP to handle divorces, which is an option for some people. However, most EAPs don't know about collaborative divorce. So I think as a frontline person in a company dealing with an employee who you come to learn is getting divorced, I think a way that you could be supportive is to remind them, and if the company can offer it as a benefit, give them a free, pay for their consultation with a collaborative divorce attorney in the area so that they can truly understand what their options are and what they're getting into, and also be aware of the process of a collaborative divorce, which will basically be designed in a way that the employee can just kind of rest for a moment. They can ease off of their own anxiety about what this is going to cost them, how their lives are going to be ruined, and instead get a new frame of reference for this being an opportunity for personal growth and empowerment and transformational change. And the mindset really does matter. And the mindset of an employee, you want your employees to feel healthy. It's a well-being kind of exercise. And so as an HR person, you want to educate yourself about what is collaborative divorce, how is it different than mediation, how is it different than litigation, and then be a resource for your employee. And ideally, if you could, spot the consultation fee, let your employees go talk to a collaborative divorce attorney so that they can get the full range of options for them.
Absolutely. I'm checking with Nancy Smith, the author of Untangling Your Marriage, A Guide to Collaborative Divorce. And Nancy, we're going to cut to a break in just a moment and then continue our conversation. But Nancy, what was the process of just writing this book like? Tell our listeners a little bit about that.
Well, thanks. It was fun. I just knew that I needed to do something. And rather than watching the news, which was starting to depress me a few years ago, I just would take an hour or two every night and just start writing what I knew. And it's a strange niche to have this as as you said, a subject matter expertise, but this is what I know. This is what I've been doing for 30 years. And I really wanted the public to understand what collaborative divorce was. And I did that. And so I feel good about that. I want to make a positive impact on the world. And this is how it came out.
Fantastic. Well, we're really glad that you did, and you're sharing your expertise with our listeners and with, of course, the world, which I know everybody can find more about your book, Untangling Your Marriage, A Guide to Collaborative Divorce, of course, on Amazon. The book came out a few months ago, and of course, on your website, NancySmithLaw.com, Nancy, N-I-N-C-I, SmithLaw.com. We'll be right back and get down to business. More conversation with Nancy Smith when we return. Don't touch that. Hey, welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. We are rocking and rolling, having a great conversation with Nancy Smith, who's an attorney licensed practice in Vermont and New York. Lots of titles, and she is a leader in collaborative divorce, which we have been talking about. So let's dive right into that, Nancy. I know you've written the book, quite literally, Untangling Your Marriage, A Guide to Collaborative Divorce. How does a collaborative divorce support the person getting divorced as well as their work colleagues? We've been talking a little bit about this over the past few minutes.
Sure. So collaborative divorce is one of 4 ways to get divorced. There's really only 4 ways to get divorced. One is you can do it yourself. We call that a kitchen table divorce. You can get your forms off the internet from your local jurisdiction, wherever it is, whatever state you're in. There's mediation, which we all know about now. It's a neutral person who can be skilled in conflict resolution. So if you've got a conflict and you feel like you're on equal bargaining power with your spouse and you know all of the same information and data, and you just need help having a difficult conversation, a mediator is a great way to go. You can do mediation with lawyers or without lawyers. And then you move up the option list and you end up at collaborative divorce. And collaborative divorce is like mediation on steroids. And what that means is it's a private, discreet, out-of-court settlement negotiation process. It's fully legal. It's quite radical in that it really puts the power into the clients who can then sit back and relax and know that they have a team, an interdisciplinary team of professionals creating a container, a safe container, so that they can work through the intense emotions of the divorce, understand what their financial reality looks like, and then ultimately make good decisions about their future financial security, as well as their relationships with each other, with their children, with the extended family, with the friends and the community. So it really is it's a one-stop shop where you get all of your needs met in a divorce process, which you're going to have to deal with. You're going to need to deal with the strong emotions. You're going to need to deal with the money, and you're going to need to deal with the legal process of how do you actually do it and how do we reach a resolution. So
Absolutely.
So that's the collaborative divorce model. And then of course, everybody knows litigation, and that's kind of, everybody's worst nightmare.
Indeed. So again, I've been chatting with Nancy Smith, an attorney who has written the book Untangling Your Marriage, A Guide to Collaborative Divorce. And my takeaways from this conversation is that employee stress and employer loss can be mitigated by helping employees that are dealing with the divorce process. And again, collaborative divorce is a voluntary out-of-court settlement process that's less stressful. So Nancy, it's really, really fascinating. And you've talked about writing the book. But what are some of the things that listeners can expect if they pick up a copy of this read? It's really less of a book and more of a guide. Just tell us a little bit of the key takeaways.
Sure. So basically, it's a guide for how to actually behave like a decent human being that you know that you are. Even when you are feeling your worst, it's an invitation to actually show up at the table as your best self. And that requires a lot of insight. It's going to require mental health support. It's going to require that you let go of the negative narrative and your anger towards your spouse. It really is an opportunity to step into this next stage of your life, whether or not you are the one asking for the divorce or whether you're on the receiving end. And so it's really a guide for living through a divorce, regardless of which process you choose. Clearly, it tells you all about a collaborative divorce, but if that's not your choice, that's okay, but you can still behave with integrity and decency and mutual respect and empathy and some compassion for yourself and for those around you.
Well, Nancy, I want to make sure our listeners can get in touch with you and again, pick up a copy of the book. What's the best way to do both?
Great, thanks. Yeah, you can just visit me at my website, or you can email me, nancy@nancysmithlaw.com, or you can go on the website, nancysmithlaw.com, or go on Amazon and get the book.
Untangling Your Marriage, A Guide to Collaborative Divorce. And that's a wrap for us here on the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. We've had a great discussion with so many thought leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners, and authors that sharing their expertise with our listeners each and every week for the past 10 plus years. As always, get on my website, sheldonklein.com, get on your favorite podcast app. Just search for Get Down to Business and make sure you leave a comment, rate, review, and share. It makes it easier for others to find out about this program. In the meantime, check out our sponsors, Tom Mirabali from healthplanchicago.com, or give them a call, 630-863-3477. To success, let's get down to business. We'll talk to you next Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on 8560 The Answer.